Hello and welcome to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their loved ones. And I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. I'm joined today by Rika Granger, who is a licensed clinical social worker, and she is with Aspire Counseling. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm very interested in hearing your topic because we have so many situations that you hear about, and I certainly deal with on a daily basis in my career, where there are many issues around aging parents or family matters as it relates to how to deal with hoarding and a variety of issues that we see in the aging population. So if you could talk a little bit from the other side about what is positive aging.
Well, positive aging is like any other stage of life where you want to have a quality of life. I mean, you want to have a good quality of life, and retirement actually is one of the major transitions of life, like getting married, having children. So to plan for it and to anticipate what will happen in that stage of your life. Erik Erikson's developmental psychological stages of life is the senior stage, and the health issues, the downsizing possibly, adult children, grandparenting.
Well, can we kind of stop and talk about each of those? Mm-hmm. And I guess the broader subject of retirement as a starting place and how you interact in those different topics.
Oh, sure, yeah. So retirement, you think smooth sailing, great, finally I get to retirement. I've planned for it, I've got enough money for it, my family knows I'm going to retire, I've worked a long time, I want to have some leisure time. And then you get to retirement and you're almost blindsided because what your work has given you is a lot. It's given you a social life, it's given you a sense of purpose, it's given you an identity. You're actually making money when you're working, you've got a routine. So when you retire, you don't have that sense of purpose, you don't have a routine, you're not making money anymore. So you're sort of have to, you're disenchanted. You sort of have to figure out, wait a minute, what am I going to do? I mean, what's my role now? It's a role change. And so to anticipate that, but also accept that that's going to be a transition time that you're going to face and embrace it and work with it. And that's what we can help people with, is to figure out the multitude of things you can do in Montgomery County that can give you a sense of purpose and a structure to your day, and also to help them with considering downsizing and working with their adult children and different issues.
I've attended meetings where they talk about the retirement aspect of people not taking that step to retire because it's become such a part of their identity, the work. And I kind of get that myself.
Yeah. So what's recommended if you do have other parts of your life that that you've considered and planned for to do in retirement, you can titrate down. You can work, 3/4 time, then half time, then quarter time, but you can also work. I mean, it's really, if that's right for you and your family, then that's right for you. I mean, fortunately, there's no cookie cutter for retirement anymore.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you were talking about some of the other issues, the health.
I'm just thinking of what brings people into my office. Health and health anxiety brings people into my office because why do I have to go to so many more doctor's appointments? I wasn't planning on spending my retirement going to doctors. And of course, Medicare has well visits, but our bodies deteriorate over time, and as we get older, they deteriorate a teensy bit more quickly, but there can be health considerations for you or your spouse, and you end up going to the doctor. And again, it's rather than hyper-focus on your health and lead a life of anxiety, wondering what's going to come next, is to expect that you're going to have health issues, to thank your body for being there for you, but to realize that it's going to be somewhat impaired in different ways, and to take as much information about it as you can from the doctor, from doing your own research, from listening to your own body and deciding what to do. It's really your choice. It's not something your health is not your choice necessarily, but it's your choice what to do about it, and to not let it run your life.
So can you give us an example of somebody who you or counseling relative to that particular issue?
Well, I've known people to, it's almost like they're a child again, like my stomach hurts. There must be something wrong with me. I must have an ulcer or cancer, or I'm going to have to stop what I'm doing. I can't do anything I'm doing anymore because of my stomach. And then you go to the doctor and they say, well, you know, it could be stress, it could be your diet, it could be this, it could be that. And then someone will focus like extremely rigid about their diet or extremely rigid about their lifestyles, which causes stress. Being rigid causes stress. So then it's debilitating in its own right, the anxiety. So we help them learn to deal as they have their entire life with uncertainty. And to, of course, you're going to minimize risk by having a healthy lifestyle and a healthy diet, but not to assume the worst. To assume that things will occur, but you know, it could be the worst, it could be the best, it could be something in between. That's sort of the root of cognitive behavioral therapy, is to help people consider that the worst case scenario usually doesn't happen.
But it is human nature, is it not? And I'm not saying that from any clinical experience, certainly, but to do that?
Yes, it is, especially when it's new to you. I mean, you've led a very active life, you've been very healthy, you've focused on your health, you want to be healthy, and then you get, you know, hit with a bad knee, or with a minor heart attack, or with a little bit of cognitive impairment, and it scares you, as it would anybody. And so we help people with accepting that, but also developing skills to distract themselves about it, or to meditate on it, or to find ways to not let it take up their whole day. Yes, they can address it effectively, but not to have it be the only thing they do each day.
What are some of the skills that you would recommend that people try?
Well, there's a few different ones. You can tell yourself, we tell people this about intrusive thoughts, is you have a thought in your mind, oh my God, my stomach, I just had a pain in my stomach. I got to stop and figure out what it is. And we say, well, why don't you tell yourself, okay, I'll address this at 5 o'clock this afternoon unless it gets worse. And then then you will have a meeting with yourself at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to address your stomach pain. And if it gets worse, you address it. You call the doctor and see what to do, or monitor it. And then throughout the day, you can distract yourself with, if you have mundane tasks to do, like ironing, you can focus on the iron, on the steam, on all the sensory parts of your day that you can, basically you're focusing on what's external to your mind, so that you're not focusing on what's in your mind. You can meditate, again, on a pleasant place, or on, you know, focusing on your toes and your calves and your knees and all the way up your body, or again, focusing on what do you hear, what do you see, what do you feel, what do you taste.
Do you show people how to meditate? Mm-hmm. Is that part of your practice?
Yeah, yes. It's become part of a lot of therapists' practice, because the mindfulness and meditation has become there's been quite a need for it lately.
Well, I think it's becoming more mainstream. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, we all especially in this area, lead such high strung lives, for lack of a better word, that it's important to become more present and more mindful of what we need each day.
A tad bit of stress. Just a tad. So let's talk about some of the other issues and how people can address them that you're dealing with your seniors.
Well, there's a tendency after one retires, or when one has an ailment, or one loses their spouse, for example, there tends to be not tendency, but there's a risk for social isolation. So we encourage people to go to places like the senior centers in Montgomery County, Rockville Senior Center, Gaithersburg, Holiday Park. We encourage them to join a book club or volunteer. I mean, Montgomery County has tons of volunteer opportunities, and they actually have a senior volunteer program. So recognize and validate their reason for isolating, but if that's not working for them, to help them in baby steps to come out of isolation and find a different routine that'll work for them, especially if they've lost a spouse. I mean, that's like losing 1.5 people because you've lost your spouse and you've lost your marriage, and it's a big step to actively pursue socialization, because it used to be that it was just automatic. You had your family, you had your spouse, you had your work, but now you actually have to pursue people to socialize with, and that's new.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of part of, we had Pazit from the Villages. Mm-hmm. That's the Montgomery County program. That I think that's one of the premises of that program, or that type of environment, so that people are less isolated.
Yeah, yeah. And people often choose to stay in their own homes because they know their neighbors, they have a sense of community there, and a sense of familiarity. So they choose to stay in their house, even though they don't need a big house anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's a change.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, transition's hard for anybody.
So is that something else that you are counseling people about? Is the benefit, I guess, of exploring that move?
Yes, we talk about, do you want to move? Why do you want to move? Why do you want to stay? You know, safety-wise, can you stay, or do you need to move? And look at the whole picture, the pros and cons, and often educate, a lot of education on what's available to you if you move or if you don't move. Where to go if you move, what's financially possible, and then also if you stay, what's possible, what help you might need, and what retrofitting components you need in your house to help you stay, fall risk stuff. And so yeah, and there's a whole financial formula about that too, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And
does Aspire, the company you're affiliated with, what's their role in helping people?
Well, we are a mental health agency, so we see all ages, kids and adults, and we have a couple of different programs. One is a postpartum depression program. We have a mobile med program where we're with mobile med clinics, and then we have the positive.
Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have a mental health component to the mobile med, where we see clients in the community, wherever mobile med is, with mobile med. I mean, they're referred by mobile med. And then mobile med has programs throughout the community, and we're actually under mobile med at the Gaithersburg Senior Center. But we have, so we have that, and that serves the people who come to mobile med. We have the positive aging program, which serves a few different communities with psychoeducational groups, psychotherapy groups, individual counseling, and then workshops on different issues that affect aging. So we have both, third-party paid individual counseling, but we also have grant-funded programs like positive aging and postpartum depression and the mobile med program.
Well, what I'd like to do, we're going to take a short break in a minute or two. And when we come back, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about the mobile med, because I'm not familiar with it, and some of the more of the intricacies of the programs.
Okay.
So we'll take a short break, and we will be right back.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you eat stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Welcome back to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their loved ones. And I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. And I'm joined today with Rika Granger. And we left off before our break talking about some of the programs that Aspire is involved with. And Mobile Med, could you just share a little bit about what that is? Because I've never heard of it, and some of the other programs that you provide through the Aspire.
Okay, so yeah, Aspire has both counseling that's paid for through third parties like insurance companies, but we have several community-based programs that are provided through grant funding and that we've found. And Mobile Med is one, and Mobile Med seeks out grant funding from different sources and then has several subcontractors who work with them, and one of them is Aspire. And we provide, again, in the community where Mobile Med is, we provide mental health counseling for anybody, which is most people, who come to Mobile Med with on issues of substance abuse, family conflict, acculturation.
What is acculturation?
If they're new to the country and they're
Assimilating?
assimilating, and often that can affect children's ability to attend at school because there's so much new to the family and the child. So Mobile Med is fortunate enough to be able to have the mental health component, which we provide, where they can provide mental health counseling for these families and or just adults or just children in bilingual services.
And is Mobile Med actually I'm assuming, and I don't really want to do that, but is that actually a mobile vehicle that goes out into the community that provides medical services as well?
Well,
or am I way off base?
I'm not intimate with the program because I'm focused on positive aging, but I'm going to assume that there are both the actual vehicle, because you've seen them, I've seen them, and then there's also remote locations where Mobile Med may set up and provide services, and we are with Mobile Med wherever they go. I mean, not necessarily every place, but we're in key locations where they are.
So with regard to the positive aging, what are some of the other situations where you find yourself helping either the senior or the family and the senior together?
Some issues I've found are that, which is sort of typical, is when one member of the couple dies and the other one is just lost because they've been together forever, like since they were 20, and that's the only time they've never lived alone. And so to help them with independence, I mean, to convince them they can do it and then help them do that. And so with that, we will help them with the grieving process to understand that this is going to take time. It's going to take time to get over the loss and also to accept that a new life. I mean, I've also had seniors, God bless them, who want to achieve something, like they want to take on a new hobby or take on a new, a deficit of theirs and try to get better. And they've,
give us an example.
Well, I've got seniors who want to be very involved with their grandkids, and they've just never had time for that. And so I help them sort of understand, again, the dynamic between themselves and their children, and how to tolerate, if you will, the difference in parenting styles, and how different kids are. Like, children don't write thank you notes anymore, and so I help them understand that, and that, if they text, they've got it made. And fortunately, at Rockville Senior Center and at Gaithersburg, they have computer classes. And sometimes I have families, well, especially seniors who are quite old, may have lost a child, and that's something that you never want to have to face. Or unfortunately, I sometimes have people who don't have their finances set up well enough so they can know if they have enough money to live the rest of their life. And so I help them get resources find resources to help them figure that out. So I'm a big proponent of planning for that, and also planning to have a healthcare power of attorney, and in situations where you're going to be surprised by a health crisis and you need to be prepared. I have one approach I take with families, with adults, senior adults, and everybody actually, is surprise, something just happened. You weren't expecting it. You hurt your knee, or your son just called and said he's getting a divorce, or your daughter just called and said she's moving across the country, or your basement's just flooded, or your best friend just died. Things that you don't anticipate, and to be not unfortunately prepared for that, to be prepared for surprises, and to help yourself negotiate that.
Do you find that most of the people you're working with heed that advice, even in those scenarios that you share with them?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think even if they don't heed the advice, they at least feel validated when they come to see me or they seek out a friend. You know, they feel, I really encourage them to like get into a support group or talk to me or talk to somebody, you know, in a volunteer setting or in a senior center or something, to realize they're not alone. You know, this is something that one goes through, and it's really tough. I have a couple clients who are dealing with mild cognitive impairment, and that's really scary. And I can't tell them what their trajectory is going to be, but I help them, you know, become more familiar with you know, whatever dementia and other diseases that include cognitive impairment, and appreciate where they are. Because they really do think they're alone. I mean, that, you know, nobody's dealing with what I'm dealing with, and that's not true.
So do you then recommend at that point support groups for people who are in that situation?
Yeah, and I have the fortune of being able to sort of, when I get several people who've, you know, with common issues, I can decide I'm going to do a support group in the future for that. And I also help people find others, if you will. I mean, it's all confidential, so unless with permission, I can help people find each other. And the great thing about being in the community, both mobile med, postpartum depression, positive aging, is that there's less of a barrier between the client and the mental health counselor, because you're in their setting. So it's not as scary to go see somebody about mental health issues or anxiety or any sort of depression or fears that you have.
Are there other examples of positive aging and how you're impacting that sort of goal, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, I've got, a couple of examples. One is we have a long-standing women living alone group at Rockville Senior Center, and the camaraderie and the support and the sisterhood, if you will, of the people there is a very positive part of their life. I've got people who I've talked a lot about the need to be your own healthcare advocate in the healthcare community, and so then they were like, "Oh, right, okay, yeah, okay, so that I'm not crazy. That's true." So I help them understand that that's just what you have to do, whatever that is. Whether you have to be your own healthcare advocate, whether you have to plan your finances, whether you have to get your house fixed, whatever. That's just what you have to do, and you do it, and then you move on. That, you know, again, positive aging is about having a quality of life and not having something so burdensome in your life. And if it is, maybe you need to change what you're doing, both by, if your house is too much for you, move, or if you don't like your doctor, change your doctor, or if your health condition is exacerbated, you know, by something, then change your lifestyle a little bit.
Make the choices and just do it. But I wasn't quoting anybody.
Yeah, and I also work with conflict, but in a couple, because sometimes they're in maybe different places in their lives, especially if they're in different generations. And so to help each other understand each other, same as with adult children and their parents. A big thing about adult children and their parents is for adult children to understand that their parents are losing control of things they used to have control of. And they're anxious about that because they don't know what they're going to lose control of next. So they want to be able to control things they know they can control. So if they can control the knowledge that their child is going to get back from their vacation at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, they want to know that. So for a senior to ask their adult children to please let them know something, they're not being nosy, they're not trying to get into their lives, they're just trying to have a sense of calm with something they can have a sense of calm about, because they're losing control of, they don't have as much physical fitness. They don't have as much, they're not as sharp in their mind.
What are some of the other examples that you can share with us of the adult child aging parent scenario where you might be able to come into play to help with suggestions in those dynamics?
I've worked with families where, again, the family is in the middle of their sandwich. They're in the middle of raising children and they just have very little time for their senior. But I help them understand, and their skill set is not senior services. They don't know senior services. So I help the adult children understand what senior services, much like what you do, are available and what financial obligation there is for them, and really letting them know they do not have to be the caregiver. They have to manage the care, ideally, but they don't have to be the caregiver, and also educate them on how to embrace their senior where they are, not expect them to be a different way because they're not, and to sort of embrace that and not try and push against it, but to try to embrace it and work with it. And to give them forgiveness. I mean, both sides need to forgive, because it's not a skill. They don't. It's just like parenting. You're not born knowing how to parent. You're not born knowing how to take care of your older parent.
Yeah. So, just if you could share one situation where you made a huge impact in the life of either a person you were helping or their family.
I've had actually two different people who recently retired, and they were just really depressed. I mean, just not thinking that they needed to figure this out, and what was their problem? Very high expectations of themselves, which is quite common around here. So I helped each of them. They're very similar. Each of them understand that first of all, they're retired. They can do whatever they want, and that they can find something to do, and they don't necessarily need to know how to do it. I mean, they're a volunteer, or they're doing a hobby, that they're not expected to be an expert in doing this or in planning their retirement. I mean, they don't. It's not a work towards perfection. It's just something that needs to be planned or figured out. So I've helped them develop a lifestyle, if you will, that suits them. And that's really rewarding to see somebody graduate from working to retirement. I mean, it's really fun for them the aha moments of, and also people with seasonal affective disorder, the winter blues is a big thing with seniors.
All right. Well, I think we're about out of time, but I wanted to thank you so much. That was very helpful and informative.
Well, thank you.
And if somebody would like to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Well, Aspire Counseling is in Gaithersburg. The number is 301-978-9750, or my email is fgranger@we-aspire.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have a topic you'd like to see on Senior Solutions, please feel free to email me at seniorsolutions@mmctv.org. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.